everyone. Welcome back to the How to Podcast series. I have a great podcaster here on the podcast. We're going to be talking about her show. It's launching, and for those that are listening to this right away, it's live. You can hear the trailer. We're going to be talking about her podcast. If you love sports, yes, and you love cheering for sports, yes, well, a life coach created a podcast about sports. So it has the word coach right in it. So there you go. This is going to be the podcast for you. Jenny Cheifetz is with us today. Jenny, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you here as my co-host.
Thank you, Dave. It's so good to be here.
Right? It's exciting.
Yes.
So do you have like a whistle as well that you use for coaching?
Right.
Yeah. No?
No.
Okay,
That would kind of go against my methods.
That's not right? Okay. So I'm not going to be a life coach anytime soon. But I like the idea of a life coach getting on the field and having a sports podcast. That's kind of a thing. I like that. So tell us about your show. It's coming soon, and time of recording. We're get the trailers up. Tell us about what's going on with your podcast.
Thank you. I'd love to. It is called Sideline Sisters. And while the name does imply women and sisterhood, obviously I'm not exclusive. You know, the airways do allow for inclusivity. So I'm all about all listeners coming to the show. And certainly I invite guests of all nature to the show. But what it's about is being a platform for my friends, my female cohort, to come and have candid conversations with me about all things sports. Yes, I'm a life coach, and I want to be an ambassador to people, but specifically, I do work with women and athletes to support them in balancing the struggle of life and being an athlete and all the stress and anxiety that goes with juggling life and sports. But what I wanted in this show was a place for me to have kind of lighthearted conversations that I don't really get to have in my day-to-day life, being a busy mom, wife, business owner, about the things that I love of being a cheerleader and spectator in sports. And so I invite guests of all realms of sports. So whether it's athletes themselves, coaches, not life coaches, but although actually mindset coaches, player coaches, athletic coaches, sports psychologists, administrators, and sort of people in the front office aspect of sports, and also just kind of friends and super fans in the world of sports to come on and talk about the things they love about being in that arena, so to speak, the literal and figurative arena of sports. So those conversations that I would have if I were meeting a friend at the coffee shop to talk about, what you did this weekend, what you watched, not breaking down the game. So, not necessarily talking about who threw this many yards, but maybe the behind the scenes stories, those things that we might see on the entertainment shows, or,
Nice.
the fun aspect of sports that we love.
It's amazing. I love the idea for the show. My wife is going to love this show because where she works, they have like these sports competitions, and you can bet on a team, and the money goes to charity and everything. But she picked a team because she knew nothing of the game or the players or the teams, but she really liked the colors of their jerseys. And you know what?
Yeah.
With zero knowledge about picking out the team to win, she won, and she beat everyone in her business. And she's like, she came home, she's like, I can't believe I won. But she's like, I just like their uniform. I think they're really cool. And I'm like, that's right. So sports can be that inclusive, right? It can include everyone. You don't have to be
Yeah.
a super nerd to enjoy sports. You can just
Exactly.
love it for the game, whatever it is for you. And I think sports can be something that brings us together, right?
You took the words right out of my mouth. And that's the thing that I love about it. Just the camaraderie of it. Look at how there are so many women I know that use it as an opportunity for a reunion or a girls' trip. And it's not that they necessarily love the team or the particular sport, but they use it as an opportunity to get people together.
Two strangers with the same jersey on become instant friends. Mm-hmm. And it's the logo on the front. That unifies us and brings us together. You can see them across the room. You're like, that's my person. I have no idea who they are, but they're wearing my jersey. So we already have a connection before we even met. And that's what I love about sports.
Yeah. I'll be scrolling Instagram and I will see a random picture, but if someone's wearing a Red Sox hat in the picture, I'll be drawn to comment on the picture.
Yeah. And that's all it takes.
Just because.
Right.
Yeah.
So a podcast that unifies and brings people together, shares great stories around sports as a leverage point to talk about whatever you're going to talk about. Great idea. I love it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So when does the podcast officially launch?
It is coming out in January.
Nice.
Sort of a New Year's, with a New Year's spin and bringing people together. So in the spirit of new and I'm not huge into resolutions, but if someone had a resolution of what kind of positivity and that kind of spirit of what warmth and togetherness can I bring into my life, maybe this is the show that you would want to follow, subscribe to, because I think, I'm hoping that that's the spirit that it'll bring.
I love it. So if you're listening to this right now and you, play any type of sports, professionally, amateur sports, whatever, or you know someone who plays and you can connect Jenny to that person, I would love for you to reach out to Jenny and make sure you make that connection to help her as she launches her podcast. Because again, Jenny, we don't know who's listening to this. They could be in the ball, sitting at the ball field right now and listening to you going, yeah, I'd love to be on her show. Yeah. And having a podcast just opens the door to speak to people that we really have no reason to be in their calendar, to be quite honest. But the fact that we have a show, they're like, I would love to talk to your audience. I'd love to meet you and be a part of your podcast. So you don't know who's going to reach out to you. So hold on, because you're going to have some interesting conversations in the future, just so you know.
Right. I know. I'm like, who knows? Maybe Wayne Gretzky is listening and says, yeah, this is the show for me.
There you go, Wayne. Wayne, come on. You're the great one. You can do this. You can get on the show.
Right. I know. What else is he doing?
Come on. Right?
I'm sure he's not busy.
No, he's got nothing going on. I love it.
I know. Like I said, it's predominantly a female focused show, just because I feel like in the sports world, this kind of show is lacking for women. That's why I was drawn to put this out into the universe. So my focus is women, but if a special man comes into the sphere, so that's why I might have dropped that name.
There you go. You never know. You just never know.
If you're listening.
Never know. Okay, so as you're starting your podcast, any of those that have listeners that are in the exact same spot that you're in, you have your trailer up, which is great. You've already got that. Everything's working, which is nice to know that you have that all set up already. There's listeners listening to this, and they're in the exact same spot that you're in, except they haven't hit record yet. They're trying to get everything perfect, get everything right, just the right way, but they're afraid to kind of take the step and do the thing and hit record. Jenny, what would you say to someone listening that's kind of at that beginning stages? What message did you need when you were starting your show?
You know, Dave, I actually heard a really great analogy that it resonated so profoundly with me that I would be so glad to share with your audience. So picture yourself walking down Main Street and you want an ice cream. And there's an ice cream shop that you see on the street, walk up, right along the street. And it looks amazing. It's got this beautiful awning that is so welcoming, but it's closed. And it says closed for renovations. And inside, there's a team of people that are refinishing the floors and they're painting murals on the walls. And in the back is the owner and his team, his wife, his family, and they are perfecting the recipe, perfecting it because they do not want to put out a product that is anything less than supreme. And so they're in there tirelessly working to make this place the most inviting ice cream shop, right?
Right.
Okay, but they're closed. So I'm walking down Main Street. So is everybody else wanting an ice cream cone because it's a beautiful summer day and they're not open. But down the street, there's another ice cream shop that is ready to serve poor quality, straight from that like warehouse distributor,
basic stuff.
base quality, nothing on the wall, but kind of posters, just things you could get off the internet. They've got stale cones, styrofoam cups,
right?
Kind of waxy jimmies, sprinkles, whatever you call them. Your basic toppings, nothing impressive, and really like crummy service, like no eye contact,
right.
No hi, how are yous, just it's a factory line ice cream shop. But you know what? They're open,
right?
And they're open at like 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day of the week. So you know what? They have a line of people out the door because they're open and this perfection shop isn't. So that's the thing. They're getting the business. They're open. They've got the line out the door. So this message resonated to me because the person that's out there trying to perfect their episode and they're behind the scenes trying to edit perfectly and waiting to press record because they're just not ready. They don't have the right equipment and they don't have the soundproof room yet. And maybe I don't know if I'm going to sound right. I haven't practiced enough. Maybe I should get some of my friends together and rehearse. Oh, okay. How long are you going to wait then?
Right.
And so everyone else down the street is putting out their shows, putting out their episodes and making the impact that you want to make with your show, telling jokes, making people laugh, putting out information, whatever it is that you want to do with your show, they're doing while you're sitting at home reading the books, reading the information on the websites, asking all the questions, but you're not doing it. And they're doing it. And they might be doing it messy. That was the lesson I was. So do it messy.
Yeah.
But do it. So
there you go.
Yeah. So I'm doing the interviews and another thing I was told, your first 10, 20, 50 episodes aren't going to sound the way the next 10, 20, 50, 100 episodes will.
Right.
And that's okay. That's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So don't hold yourself to that standard. Just just start.
And don't compare yourself to others who are further down the road than you are. You don't compare your normal to their highlight reel. That's not fair.
Yeah.
You haven't seen their normal. So if you're going to compare normals, make sure you compare normal for normal, not normal for highlights, because that you'll never move forward if you always focus on what people do better than you.
Yeah.
Right.
I put out an Instagram post, God, probably a year ago, and it was real versus real, like REAL versus REEL. And it's true. We do that all the time, comparing real versus someone's highlight reel. And it's just, you can't live like that. Just stay in your own lane.
Yeah. I like it. The other thing is, we talked before we hit record that you're doing your own editing, which I'm thrilled to hear, because starting a new podcast can be very expensive when you start adding up hosting fees, equipment purchases, microphones, editing, maybe hiring people to help you do the editing. It's just money, money, money. And for most of us, we're not making $1 bajillion when we start our podcast. So we're doing it all on our own and having to come up with the money to do so. So you're doing your own editing. So can you take us through your journey of editing? Because I think this gives people perspective. We talked, you said you started with Descript and then moved to Audacity. I've actually had a Descript expert on the podcast who is pro Descript, and I've had people use other things. So having perspective, I think, helps people to realize there's not just one way to do something. Yeah. So I'd like to expand on your journey a little bit as an editor of your own show and talk about the benefits maybe of editing your own podcast, and maybe a little bit of your journey with that as well.
Yes. So I've accepted that there's things I have to pay for. I chose to pay for Zoom because I don't want to limit myself to 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Or, that to me is a non-negotiable. So I pay for Zoom. And I pay for Buzzsprout because to me, that's also a non-negotiable.
Good.
Whatever the free version is too limiting.
Yeah.
So that's what I have to pay for. But the editing, I felt like, okay, I'm going to try to do this myself. So I'm not a tech wizard. I'm 48 years old. I didn't grow up with computers. I've learned everything. And I also never worked in a job with computers. I've never had to do any of this stuff. So this has definitely been a learning curve. So yes, I started with Descript because that was suggested to me. It was suggested as the most intuitive. I don't think so, despite what your expert might have said. I just didn't. I really wanted it to be. Because I was told it was so user-friendly, I tried to lay out the tracks, and because the free version it has such a limited amount of allowing you to edit with transcript, I didn't want to even try to do that because I felt like I would be teasing myself if I tried it. So if anyone's listening and says, but you can edit by highlighting words, yes, on a very limited amount. So I didn't even try that because it was too enticing to only do it on a trial basis. So the blade feature of the sound waves, clipping with the blade, I just did not find user-friendly. So I tried it. I did it for hours. I would highlight. By the time I got to the blade, the highlight portion would be gone. And then I'd be back to highlighting again, go to the blade, the highlight would be gone. For hours, I would be at it. So after about a week of playing with Descript, I was complaining to a friend and she said, I don't know why you're at that. Try Audacity. And so I scrapped Descript. I mean, I left it on my computer. Then I downloaded Audacity. There was again, a little bit of a trick because it was saying I didn't have a certain extra file, extra component that I needed. I don't remember, to get a WAV file or a something file. Anyway, I don't know, but I had to Google it. I Googled, why isn't this working? And it told me you need to have this extra plugin or something. And I figured it out. So it was took another 5 minutes, downloaded that. It was simple. I watched a YouTube video for 5 minutes and it explained Audacity doesn't come with this extra thing. It was this very simple YouTube video. And it said, download this thing. I downloaded that thing. And it's been, I know you've been explaining to me that I'm not even using Audacity, I'm not even using 90% of what Audacity is capable of, but the 10% that I am has been really helpful.
Nice.
So far it has been worlds of an improvement from Descript.
There you go. And again, like Descript is great if you pay for the monthly fee and you go all in. But again, for me personally, I have 7 podcasts. So I'm putting out 10 hours a week in content a week. So I max out anything to do with a paid subscription and I can't afford 7 times the cost of a subscription to service all 7 of my shows. So I'm in a unique spot. I don't encourage anyone to be doing this much podcasting by any means, but
I don't know how
I can't afford it to do that 7 times the cost of everything. So I look for free options because it's out of necessity for me. And I know there's going to be gurus that listen to this and go, shame, shame. You're using these free tools. But again, they have one podcast, they do 1 episode a week, and they works well for them in the confines of what they're doing. Great. If that's what works for you, then you need to stick with it. Right. But if there's a better option that serves you and sounds like Audacity's working for you, you can use those tools. So I'm always looking for another free option to help and support people so that they can do their show for free. Yeah. One thing I love about doing my own editing is I get to hear myself. And by editing myself, I get to pick up on some of the things that I say. Like I say the word so way too much. I say, yeah, many, many times. And so when I go to my next recording, knowing that I'm going to have to edit this part out, I'm more apt to say those words less because I'm aware of them. If I hand my editing to somebody else, I'm not actually hearing the stuff they cut out as often, so I'm not getting better. I'm not using those words less. I'm more aware of it.
That's interesting.
So I'm getting better. And when I get better, I say those words less. And when I say those words less, I have less editing to do. I've also learned when I have a guest to be quiet when my guest is talking. Because having me go, yeah, oh yeah, me too. I did that. Okay, cool. Yeah, oh, I like what you said there. When I talk over my guest, I found I was distracting my guest to the point where they forgot what they were talking about because Dave is yammering away in the background while my guest is trying to make a point. And I would distract them from their original thought, and they never completed the thought. And for my listener, they're waiting for you to explain the end of the story, but I got caught up in what you said and I took you in a new direction, and you never came back to your original content. And my listener's like, Dave, stop distracting your guest. We want to hear the entire story. So I stop talking. I listen better. And then my wife says, Dave, you're listening better at home. because I'm actually doing it on my podcast. So my relationships are better
Wow.
because I shut up when someone's talking. I don't talk over them.
Wow, you just totally life coached
Right?
yourself.
I need a whistle. I want a
Look at
whistle.
that.
Right?
Wow, wow, you don't need a whistle.
But there you go. So if I give all my
Oh,
editing to somebody, which I
yeah,
do, Bob, I do editing for people. But anyways, as a side note,
yeah.
but if you give all your editing,
I don't know how you have
I know,
time to edit
right?
for anyone else,
As
but
you give that
okay.
editing away, you also are not responsible to get better. So having
Right.
even if it's basic understanding of how to edit your show, you will be a better person, not just for your podcast, but in life. So you need to
Yeah.
understand it as much as you can. So I love that you're doing your own edits. So well done.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I took a podcasting course. I'm actually still in it. It ends very soon. And that was something, it was suggested to me, maybe at some point, if you blow up and get so successful, that you can treat yourself to the hiring the staff. Um, but it's like anything, it's good to know how it runs, the inner workings, like when you're learning to drive a car, it's good to know how to change a flat. It's good to know how to, change the oil. It's good to know how the things run before, like you're doing your taxes. Not that I know how to do any of these things. I'm just, suggesting them to
Yeah.
other people.
Good.
But it's good to know how to do these things so you're not left clueless, and so that if things but yeah, I don't, it's time consuming now. I know that I'll get better at it. It will get smoother. But yeah, like you said, and I do kind of like you said, I do kind of like listening right now to my interviews over re-listening to hear what am I doing? What am I doing wrong in my, not wrong, but, critiquing my speech patterns. Am I, yeah, am I slurred, or am I boring?
Yeah.
Yeah, like where am I going? Am I not unprepared, but do I feel like I yeah, what am I doing? What's my point?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you can do the audio edits, which is great. You can fix background noises. If my dog barks when the mailman comes, I can take that out. There's some things I can do to benefit my audience, which just makes it a better listening experience for them. But then there's also content editing, where if you're my guest and we have a cooking podcast, and I say to you, hey, Jenny, what's your favorite seafood recipe? And you say, Dave, I'm allergic to seafood. I don't cook seafood. I could
right.
take all that out. Like, that was a bad
Exactly.
question from me. I didn't know you
Right.
as my guest as well as I probably should have, and I probably shouldn't have even asked the question. So, does it benefit my audience to leave that question and answer in? No. If I take it out, is it going to hurt the context of my podcast? As long as I don't refer to it in the future, I can just remove it. It didn't happen. And my
Yep.
audience has
Yep.
no idea it happened. And probably my guest will
Yep.
forget it even happened as well. So
Yep.
taking those pieces
Yeah.
out, it doesn't impact the content of what I'm doing, and it gives back my listeners time, right?
Yep.
So that's another edit you can do
And
as well.
yeah. And that was good practice for me in my first experience. I was still using Descript at the time, but that was good practice for me with editing. Is I asked something. I had a whole conversation with one of my guests, and it rambled on, and it was I ended up, we had a conversation. It was about food, actually. And I ended up going on and on about this recipe. And I realized after the fact, probably 5 minutes after we ended our interview altogether, that I suggested this DIY hack of a Girl Scout, like how to make a Girl Scout cookie recipe at home. And it was a great, oh yeah, it was a whole great
Right?
hack. And I gave her the wrong tip of how to
Okay.
do it. It was a great hack, and I gave it to her wrong. And we had a whole long conversation about it. And I was like, I totally messed that up afterwards. And I thought about correcting myself in the outro that I'm going to record afterwards or in the show notes. And then I said, you know what? That's just, it was like 5 minutes of a conversation. I'm just going to cut the whole thing. It was just needless time for the listeners to hear. Whatever. I'm just going to cut the whole thing. And as an added bonus, I get to practice editing. So there we go. Like listeners don't need to waste their time, and I get to practice editing. So
when do you record your intro for your next episode? Before you record with your guest or after?
After.
Okay, explain why.
After. Yeah. Yeah. I decided that I want to hear how the interview goes. And then I get to, let's say I was interviewing you, Dave. I get to learn all about you, have this great conversation with you. And then afterwards, on my own time, I also, when I'm interviewing someone, I'll start the conversation. After I press record, I'll very briefly say, hey, Dave, great to have you on the show. Dave is a podcaster. He's, I can't believe he is the host of 7 shows. Dave is coming to us from Canada. So, Dave, I'm going to throw it over to you. Introduce yourself to the listeners. And then you'll go on and say whatever you want to say. I'll give you, free reign to say whatever you want to say. Then we'll jump into the rest of the show. Afterwards, when we're completely done with our interview, I could be doing this weeks later, but on my own time, after I've completely listened back to the show and I've extracted the nuggets, I will record both the intro and the outro. And I'll think to myself, okay, so Dave told me how he wanted to be introduced, whether he's a podcaster, a dad, whatever. I'll say that. And then I'll say, we're going to hear a great interview today. But before we get into it, I want to remind you guys, the listeners, here's what's going on with Gentle Coaching, my business, and also the Sideline Sisters Facebook group. If you're not a member, head over to the Facebook group, join. We've got all kinds of fun stuff going on. So I have these call to actions that I want to make sure are relevant, time-wise. Yeah. So I do nice. That. And if I did that like right on the spot, they might not be time significant.
Yeah, and the other thing too is maybe let your guests know at the beginning. So glad to have you here, Jenny. It's going to be a great interview. Just so you know, I'm going to record a new intro that's going to replace how I introduce you right now. So this is not the real version of it as we start. And then what I would also suggest, I hear a lot of podcasters slide into this, is they do a double intro. So they have a canned intro for their show. Welcome to the podcast. This is Jenny, blah, blah, blah. And here's our guest. And then they go to the recording. They record separately and they do the exact same thing a second time. Welcome to the So-So podcast. We're having a guest today. I just heard you say that. You just said that. Now you just said it again. So think about when you come into the actual interview, knowing that you're going to record separately, just jump right in. So Jenny, glad to have you here on the show. Talk about your podcast today and tell us more about it. I'm going right in because, again, I'm doing the intro later, so I don't have to do the intro twice. Just jump into the conversation as if it's already happening and then add the intro later. Done. And try to avoid doing it twice because for the listener, they're like, you just told me the name of your show twice. I feel like, like I'm ready to get right into the content at that point. So just think of that as maybe an option to play with and see if that works for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point.
any tips about finding new guests for a brand new podcast? That's something I hear a lot of people asking. How the heck do I find somebody to come on a show and I have 0 episodes? How do I even find anybody that comes on that's relevant to my topic? Any tips?
Very good. Well, I'm sure you've told your listeners about the Facebook groups,
yeah.
no? Okay. How we met. And that was very cool. So I I didn't know about those groups until a friend told me. I had a friend with a podcast, and I don't even know how I knew that she had a podcast. Must have been a friend that told me that another friend of ours had a podcast. Because I don't even know how I knew. It wasn't my friend. It was my friend's husband. But somehow I found out that my friend's husband had a podcast. And I was picking her brain about how did your husband start the podcast? That's so interesting. And she pretty much acts as his producer. So she was telling me all about it. And she was the one that told me about one of the guest Facebook groups. Like, you have to go on to this podcast collaboration Facebook group. And once I realized about the big one, whatever, like the big one with 54,000 people, then I kind of thought to myself, well, if there's one, there's got to be more. So I looked in Facebook groups, podcast guest groups. And sure enough, there's plenty.
Yeah.
I mean, now I'm not going to bother with the ones that have 130 people. But there's plenty that have in the thousands. So that's very cool. That's a very cool way to find guests that I would not have even, it would not have even occurred to me had a friend not told me about that. So I've proceeded to share that with a lot of friends that I know from my course and just people I know starting podcasts. Just, other groups that I'm a part of, my local moms group on Facebook, I put it on there and I managed to get a couple of cool guests that are part of what I would call friends/super fans. Good. They would fall in that category of my interview guests. Just putting it out amongst my friends. Instagram, I've done that. I wouldn't call myself a stalker, but I've done the hashtag search of things like tennis fan, football fan, football mom, whatever might be relevant to me. Female podcaster, sports podcaster, something like that. And I've searched relevant topics and I've DM'd people and gotten guests that way. And so I am a bit shameless. I'm not ashamed to, I'm not ashamed. That's redundant. I'm not ashamed to say that I'm shameless. I'm not grammar police. I am bold when it comes to asking people, because what's the worst that happens? They say no.
Right.
That is the worst that could happen. It's the whole Main Street thing. I mean, if you just stay quiet and stay hidden, it's not going to happen. Yeah. You got to ask.
What are your thoughts around growing your audience as a new podcaster? Do you have any plans? Do you have any, what's kind of in the works for you? What are you going to try?
Okay. So another thing that, tip that was given to me that happy to share, because I believe in this world that, I believe in abundance, and just like songs go viral, the more, things go viral, the more you tell them, that's the world we live in, a viral world. A song the more it's downloaded, the more money the artist makes. So the more I tell people this, the better we all do. I don't think, the more downloads or reviews that I get, it's not taking away from you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I will share this information in the hopes that we all do well from this. So what I was told in my course is when you want to launch, ideally you do this before you're launching, tell people you're launching, like I'm going to launch in a month or whatever, and get reviews. Get reviews. So get yourself on Apple Podcasts, and you do that through Buzzsprout. This was my track. Because Spotify, unfortunately, doesn't, even though I'm an Android user, Spotify doesn't help here because Spotify only lets you get the stars.
Yeah.
You need to be on Apple because you got to get the reviews. So you want to get, even though I only have my trailer up on today's date, you can still get reviews on a trailer. So you want to get the stars and the reviews, whether it's just your trailer or an episode. And that helps the algorithm. And so by telling as many people as possible, your friends, your Facebook friends, your Instagram followers, get the word out that you have something up, and just get the word out, get the buzz. And so hopefully by the time you have an episode or a few episodes, you've got reviews, because the more reviews you've got, the better your chances are of getting new and noteworthy, getting up there in the Apple rankings.
Right. Yeah. And that's it's kind of like a book.
Yeah.
We see book reviews and we read the book reviews and go, is this book for me? Will I enjoy this? And I think the biggest thing that we need to make sure we remind everybody too, that those ratings and reviews, that's like social proof. That's like reading a restaurant review before you go and try the food. I do that all the time. I always look at these reviews and go, the wait staff was attentive and the food came to my table nice and warm, and it was a great experience. I'm going to go in there expecting that because that's what people said. So I put a lot of weight in that. All the reviews and all that, beyond any being new and noteworthy, it's also just that social proof that this is a podcast that I resonate with as a listener. And just like I would, if as friends, I could recommend to you a show on Netflix because I know you and I know that you would like this show that you've never heard of before. But because we're friends, you're more apt to go watch that show because Dave said I would like it and Dave knows me. So there's that built in, right? So we want to kind of build on that. So anything you can do around that is great. The one thing I would say to you with a sports podcast, I would give you this tip. I'm wearing my shirt right now. It says, "What's a podcast?" And I created this shirt on TeePublic because everybody says, "What's a podcast?" When I tell them I am a podcaster, they're like, "I don't even know what that is." So I'm like, "What's a podcast?" And I have my website address on it. I created this on Canva for free, the shirt. And then I have a website that I use called TeePublic. And on TeePublic, I upload my design. I can figure out if I want this to be sized down for like an infant onesie. It can be a coffee cup. It can be all kinds of stuff, bed sheets. It can be everything. Or a shirt.
Oh,
and what I do is I wear this and people are like, "What's a podcast?" I'm like, "Yeah, right. It's right there." You could have your podcast name on your shirt and go to a sporting event, whatever that is, and just have that. Because people standing behind you in line waiting to get a hot dog are like reading your podcast name and they're like, "Hey," tap you on the shoulder, and it simply says, "Tell me about your podcast." You're a walking billboard for your own show with the people you love in a place where people love sports, right? You're already there. So if you have a podcast about Star Wars, go to a Star Wars convention and wear a podcast shirt about your podcast and just walk around.
I could probably just go to Buffalo Wild Wings on game day and same thing.
And then maybe take an extra one and just give it to somebody. And here's my shirt.
Right. I need one of those like shirt guns.
Right. Or get one of those big foam fingers that you could wave. It says the name of your podcast, whatever. But just being around potential listeners opens the door for them to say, hey, good. Jenny, tell me about your show. Oh, yeah, it's about the thing. And we do the thing. And just by having the shirt, people are, I actually make money if people buy my shirt, which is great. And I even get a discount because it's my own shirt. So I just make it for myself. If nobody buys it, I just make the shirt that I want. And it ships right to my house. So that's TeePublic. So Canva to design it. Go on there, use their templates. You don't have to be a creative wizard. Go to Canva, use it, and then just take that, go to TeePublic, create your shirt, post it, put a link in your show notes. You want to buy the shirt? Buy the shirt. It's there. And you'll make some money for your show, and you didn't really have to do anything extra. You already created the logo. You already have artwork. Yeah. Just throw it on a shirt. It's there, right? And now I have people buying my shirt for my podcast that I've never met. They're wearing my shirt somewhere. I don't even know their name, but they're wearing my shirts. And I'm like, well, this is easy. This is so easy. I don't even have to ask you to do it. And I make money from your purchase. So thank you for supporting the show, right? So just be where your listeners are. That's the best way. And you said it earlier that you found out about podcasting through word of mouth. That's the best way to advertise your show is word of mouth. So people have to know about you to talk about you. And if they don't know about you, they're not going to talk about you. Right? So you proved it yourself. You got into podcasting because somebody told you about the somebody who does the something, and here you are. So leverage that for your own podcast. So I get excited talking about this because I can't wait for your show to be like just kicking it, and we're going to get back together in a year, and you're going to be like some famous podcaster, and I have to go through your people to get to you because you're so big, right?
Right. Yeah.
I can't wait for that to happen for you. There's unlimited potential.
Yeah. I'll be hanging with Richie and be like, I know.
Like, Dave. Dave's emailing me. I don't have time for this. Here. Yeah. I love it. So, that's all it takes is just getting it out in front of people. So it's really fun. I love it. Amazing. Anything else as you're launching your podcast? Do you have any questions or anything that's like right now that you're kind of working through that maybe we can talk about before we go that could help you with the launch of your show?
Sure. One question. Do you, when you interview people and you have all of these recordings, what do you do with them?
Like storage wise, you mean after the fact?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll give you an example of why storage is important. I've been podcasting for a few years now, and 2 of my guests have actually passed away since. So they are no longer with us. But I have the video, I have all the audio, I have everything, all the correspondence, everything from our interaction. And I was able to gift that back to the family so they could see their dad on camera again. And that's one thing I have as a podcaster that I never anticipated that I could do for somebody. I actually interviewed a woman who lost her home in the Lahaina fires in Hawaii. I have the last video footage of her home from inside her house. Her house is gone. I have the video of like the plants behind her, her couch, her cat.
Yeah.
I have the video of that, which she doesn't have.
Oh, that's chilling.
So think beyond just this interaction that's temporary and it's kind of a one kind of contact and we're one and done. So keeping that stuff, I think, is important as much as you can because you're going to interact with people at different stages of life and you never know when that could come back to being something powerful that you could give back to a family, to a person. Okay. So for me, I just bought an external hard drive that just plugs into my computer because my computer was getting bogged down with 7 podcasts and all of the files and the videos and all that. I just went and bought a cheap USB drive, external, and I plug it into my computer and I move everything there. and I back up everything that I think is important. Once I upload stuff to YouTube, for example, I don't keep the file I upload to YouTube because I can download it again from YouTube. So I don't need 2 copies, 3, 4, 4 or 5 copies of something. Whatever I can do to streamline it, I kind of remove those. But I always make sure I have a backup of a backup.
But now if you were going to send, if you saved it to that hard drive and you were then going to send it to someone, it's too big. How would you send it?
I have my free Google Drives that come with my Gmail address. And I just open a Google Drive, create a new folder. I'll call it Jenny, and I'll put your files in the Jenny and then send you a link to it. And then you can access it whenever you want.
Okay. So you would do it by Google Drive. Okay.
It's free. Again, I need free options. There's paid. For me, that's what works for me.
Right. Because I asked someone else and they said the whole Dropbox thing. And I said, God, that's another, $15-20 a month. And I'm just trying to avoid all of the $20 a month options. Yeah. So I figured you've got to have more videos, more files than anyone.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. All right. So you've got a drive.
Yeah. So I just bought it off of Amazon, and it just plugs in, and
because I can't believe that I'm a dozen or so interviews in, and I've maxed out Zoom, the Zoom cloud.
Oh yeah. I always record locally on my Zoom. When you go to start your recording, and you can pick between online or home.
I end up downloading to my computer also, and then I copy over to a flash drive just in case. So I've got like triple coverage at this point because I've lost my hard drive before, so I don't trust that. But I've maxed out the cloud, and
then what?
I said, "Holy moly!" And all I'm doing is I mean, I've got the audio and the video, but I said, "Am I supposed to just send it to them and then get rid of it off the cloud entirely?"
So you could move it, you could download it from the cloud, move it to a Google Drive, and then keep it there. But then again, you're going to max that out eventually as well. So when you get when you get the audio back from your cloud recording on Zoom, do you get a track for you and a separate track for your guest, or is it all one track?
I have an audio and a video.
So just the audio.
I mean, they also, I have the audio, and then I get a speaker view and a gallery view, but I delete the speaker view because I don't care about that. So
when you get your audio back, if you record to your computer instead of to the cloud through Zoom, you can set it so that you get 2 tracks. One just your guest, and you can't hear yourself at all, and one of just you and none of your guest. So that's what I'm doing right now. So if for some reason your doorbell rang and your dog barked, I can actually isolate that and remove it so it never happened, because it's not happening while I'm talking. We have 2 different tracks. So that is much better for editing for you when you do your own editing than to have one file where I'm talking and then you're talking and then I'm talking and then you're talking. Because if I talk over you, I can't remove me from speaking over top of you. But when they're 2 different tracks, one for me, separate from yours, if I start talking over you, I can remove me, and it never happened. So that's another great tip for how you do your editing. You want to get those 2 separate tracks.
That's too much for me to take in right now.
And we've talked about this. You and I are going to get together after the fact, and we're going to go through this together. And I'm going to show you some things in Audacity that are going to make you so happy. And I can't wait, because you've already taken the step to learn it. You're curious. You're ready to learn. You're going to be so excited when we go through this and do this together. I can't wait to see the smile on your face. You're smiling already, but you're going to be smiling so big when you see what you can do, because you got this. I have complete faith in you. You're going to do such great stuff. And I'm going to make it as simple as possible for you to do the thing you want to do. And just having this conversation is the beginning of it. So I can't wait to get back together with you. We'll shut the cameras off. We're not recording. I want to just help you and get you to that next step, because your podcast is going to be crazy awesome. It's going to be amazing.
I think you're misinterpreting this smile, but
I love it.
We'll just let that go for now.
Okay, so before we go, again, let's promote the podcast. Let's tell everybody about it one more time and all of that great stuff. And let's close off with a bang. You ready? Tell everybody about the show.
Awesome. All right. It's called Sideline Sisters. It is launching in January. My name is Jenny, and my business is Gentle Coaching, and everyone can find me at Gentle Coaching. That's gentle with a J, like Jenny. So yeah, I'm hanging out on Instagram at Gentle Coaching. So all things Sideline Sisters is at Gentle Coaching, and yeah, there's a Facebook group connected to Sideline Sisters Facebook group that kind of goes along with the Sideline Sisters podcast, but it's going to be fun. It's lots of fun conversations, just casual conversations about sports.
I love it. So if you're listening and you're like, Dave, Jenny, I need to ditch the subscriptions because I'm getting subscribed to death with all these things that I'm paying for. Is there a way to do this when I don't have to pay so much money? Yes, there is. And Jenny and I are going to work together. If you need help with your podcast and you're looking for some alternatives to paying out big money every month, let's work together and let's come up with a way to save you some money and learn new skills so that you can be a better podcaster and a better human, because podcasting helps my marriage. I'm a better listener. So there you go. So there's always a side benefit to having a podcast. Jenny, I can't wait to get your shirt from TeePublic or wherever you're going to host your shirt. I want to proudly wear that shirt, and excited to see the podcast go. Can you come back when it launches? Because I'd love to celebrate with you and with our How to Podcast family, that we could join together with you and help you launch your show by giving you a lot of great listeners. We're all listening. We're ready to support you. So come back and let's celebrate the podcast, okay?
It would be an honor and a pleasure.
Right. Awesome. Everyone go check out all the show notes. Go over there, like, follow, share, give the ratings and reviews. Do all of the things to help our great friend and family member of the How to Podcast series. Jenny, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, it's Dave jumping on here at the end. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for listening to the How to Podcast series. Putting this out there for you. You're starting a podcast and you're like, Dave, the technology is giving me a headache. This editing thing is, I don't know, it's banana pants. I can't figure it all out. And you're thinking, if there was somebody who could help me with my podcast, I would pay them to do the editing for me. Guess what? I'm actually doing that. I have clients now, past guests who've been on the show on one of my other podcasts, on this podcast. I'm doing some podcast consulting. I'm doing podcast editing. I'm helping with people launching their podcast, getting it, all the technology stuff, all getting your podcast in all the players, helping you with your YouTube channel, your website. Oh, it just goes on and on. It goes on and on. And I would love to help you. So instead of going to Fiverr or Upwork, I've been on there. I keep trying to get on for jobs and nobody's paying attention to me, and I need attention. I would rather work with you as a listener of the show. So here's what I'm saying. Go to howtopodcast.ca, leave me a voice message, tell me what you need, and let's work out something that works for you and your budget. And if you need full service or you just need something quick like a drive-through type service, I'm there for you. I got you. And if you like what you hear on any of my 7 podcasts, I can do that for you. I can. And I'd love to work with you because you are amazing. And I'm there to help you, whatever you need. howtopodcast.ca. Reach out, let me know what I can do to help you with your podcast. Thank you for listening. Catch you on the next episode. Take care.